Hey, everyone. Welcome to Radiating Love. We are joined today by Shaman, who I don't think you can see very well because he's a little below camera sight, but that's why I might be a little bit off. Sharing space with our big doggy. Thank you for shining your light. So welcome, as I was saying, Earth Angels Divine, to Radiating Love. Happy spring equinox. Though it doesn't necessarily feel like spring for many of us here in North America, it is in fact spring. We have entered into the season of blossoming, rebirth, regeneration, rejuvenation. And I thought that in honor thereof, we would take the opportunity today to speak a little bit, touch upon a couple of subjects with respect to the rebirthing that we are all transitioning through right now, that we are all journeying upon right now as a whole. And this rebirthing to which I speak is that which many of us heard about with regards to 2012, the end of the world. It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. People seem to forget the second part of the sentence of that song. The rebirth, regeneration of 2012 was and is about a transcendence out of fear consciousness and into love consciousness. So that's what we are going to speak about today, touching upon various different subjects briefly, but each one pertaining to how we may manifest love consciousness into our day-to-day lives. We're going to talk about day-to-day living and being love in our day-to-day. So today's title is The Insights into Everyday Living Love. Oh, there goes Shaman. He stayed long enough to make sure that we were properly welcomed and introduced to our show today. Very sweet, yeah? So I'm just going to burn some sage, as I like to do. Get rid of any negativities that might be lurking within my being, within your being, and welcoming love into our space that we are sharing here today. And I think it's important to make note that what we're going to be discussing today, and in fact what we discuss on every of our shows here on Being Love TV, is really nothing that grandiose insofar as conceptual matters and understanding. It's pretty commonplace. And most of what you probably hear and will hear today, but have heard on Being Love TV, you might turn and say is pretty common sense. And being love is, well, pretty common sense. We all know what it is to feel love. We all know what it is to give love. We all know what it is to receive love. We all know why we prefer to experience love over fears and hates and so on and so forth. It's intrinsic. It's a part of our inherent natural makeup. So you're not going to hear any mind-blowing, freaky, out of this world concepts, insights, or wisdom. It's not about the out of this world aspect that makes being love so inspiring and such an awestruck experience. It's the doing. It's to actually take this very basic, commonplace knowledge and make use of it in our day-to-day lives. It's becoming that which we know we are authentically in our day-to-day lives. And so hopefully today we'll be able to touch upon a couple of things that will assist us in these our day-to-day lives. So I was thinking that we would begin, we're talking about our entire lives here, so we can talk about anything from cleaning your house to brushing your teeth to getting married, divorced, having children, birth, death, jobs, really anything. And what you will find in whatever we do speak to today is that they're all connected. Love consciousness is the manner by which we experience life itself. So if we are imbuing a paradigm of love consciousness, then our entire life is affected by that consciousness. It is how we experience life itself. It is our very experience of life itself. And of course, everything in our lives are connected, right? As disconnected as they may seem, brushing your teeth versus doing a project at work, they're very, very connected. If you forget to brush your teeth in the morning and you're having a meeting for that project at work, you're going to be like more introverted and not necessarily as interactive as is required. So as disconnected as things may seem, they're actually very interconnected. And I say this because I ask that you keep in mind when we are talking today, what we're saying from one subject to the other, to bring them forward, allow yourself to see the interconnectedness of them, the insights, if you will, that each specific day-to-day life situation has for the other. On that note, I have a few that have been brought to my attention more so in the last little while, and I will try to get in as many of them as possible. But we're going to begin today with authentic relationships. So, excuse me. Now, again, another, as I call them, disclaimer, if you will, with respect to what we're going to be discussing today, is that each subject matter, every day-to-day life situation is so multi-layered, multi-dimensional. There are so many perspectives, in fact, infinite, from which we may look upon any life situation. So this is in no way going to be tackling any one of these specific subject matters in their holistic breadth. We will hopefully be able to give them a general scope that will provide some inspiration and insight to assist us to align ourselves with love consciousness in dealing with these. So, authentic relationships. How do we attract authentic relationships to us? How do we know when we are being presented with an authentic relationship? And relationships, authentic relationships to which we are speaking, number one, relationships in and of themselves, our world survives thereupon. Nothing in this world would be what it was, or will be, without our relationships to one another, whether they be intimate or casual, personal or professional, whether they are between our own species, interspecies, our cosmos. It is the relationships by which anything gets done, We are not isolated islands unto ourselves. And that which occurs in relationship to one another. By authentic, what we're speaking to are relationships that are based within love consciousness as opposed to fear consciousness. By authentic, what we are speaking to are relationships that are uplifting, that are assisting, that are empowering, enlightening, in other words, beneficial to you, as opposed to relationships that are belittling, demeaning, or hurtful to you. Relationships that are abusive, relationships that are not promoting your highest happiness, which essentially is living from a fear-based consciousness paradigm. So how do we attract authentic relationships into our lives, whether they be professional or personal, because it transcends each and all? And there are two statements of wisdom, or cliches as they are, I suppose, by today, that come to mind. Know thyself, and to thine own self be true. Which, we can end it right there, but I will elaborate. When we are entering into a relationship with another, if we want to ensure that the relationships that we are entering into are relationships that are uplifting to us, that are beneficial to us, the first and foremost thing that we need to ensure is that we are consciously aware of ourselves. Consciously aware, period, but starting with, first and foremost, ourselves. What are our strengths and weaknesses? Where are we listening to the thoughts of fear, and where are we listening to the thoughts of love? Where are we likely to fall for something that is feeding our fears? Where are we more open to being swindled, if you will, by the temptations of our fears? What out there triggers our fears, that our fears are attracting to us, or attracting us to? Are we feeling unworthy? Are we feeling undeserving? Are we feeling not good enough, not pretty enough, not handsome enough, not built enough, not financially successful enough, not professionally successful enough, personally successful enough, intellectually deserving, successful enough, so on and so forth? Where are you feeling your strengths, and where are you feeling your weaknesses? Because that is what you attract to you, and that is where you are susceptible or open, if you will, to others coming in. So first and foremost is know thyself. Know who you are. Know where your strengths and weaknesses lie, so that when someone presents themselves and are stirring within you feelings and thoughts that are connected to specific thoughts, whether they be fear or love thoughts, you are consciously aware of that which is being stimulated, and therefore you are consciously aware enough to make a conscious choice as to whether or not to invest in such a relationship. And then, of course, in being consciously aware of self, consciously aware of our choices, is being consciously aware of others. And what are they emitting? You know, we can walk into a room and see somebody standing in the corner, and we get an overall feeling for the vibe, if you will, that that person is emanating. You know, you can look at a person and think, wow, that individual is just radiating brilliance. They're just oozing with love. And then you can see someone else that you meet and they are just so filled with such bleak, heavy energy, and it is overwhelming, and you feel it. You feel it. Of course, if you're not consciously aware and paying attention, you might not. And so we must be first consciously aware of self and then consciously aware of others. We must be paying attention to what they are emitting and what it is inspiring within ourselves, the thoughts and the feelings that are being inspired within ourselves. We might find somebody to be very attractive. We might be tantalized by their mystery and the allure of their beingness. But there is something inside of us, this like, that is causing those fear feelings that we have taken the time to allow ourselves to get to know, to be stirring within us. We need to pay attention to that which is being stirred within us, because that is how we communicate with ourselves. That is how we let ourselves know, yes, this is good. No, this is not. Yes, this is worth it. No, this is not. And of course, with respect to any relationship, patience. Take your time. There are times that we can see somebody and we may think that they are radiating love or emanating bleakness, but in fact we are merely seeing a mirrored reflection of where we are at. We might be in an elated state of bliss, or we might be in a depressed level of happiness, and are projecting that onto anyone and everything and everyone that we see. So in order to allow for ourselves to be able to know authentically if something or someone is authentically good for us, is to give ourselves the space to know this, and thus to be patient enough to take our time to walk gently, to walk slowly, to walk consciously, as opposed to rushing in with blinders on. That we may allow ourselves to be open to hear and feel what we are actually receiving from this other individual. Now, with respect to the attraction factor, when we ourselves are in a certain state, when we have aligned ourselves with thoughts and feelings of fear or love, we are emanating a certain vibe. The same way that we can walk into a room and we can see this room is like joyful, everybody's blissed out, and walk into another room and see these people are just depressed as anything. And we can see that in individuals. Individuals can see that in us. So when you're walking around and you're singing and everything, people know you're happy. When you're walking around with your head down, your shoulders are in, and you're all there, people know you're not so happy. It's very simple. Again, it's very commonplace knowledge. It's just a matter of integrating it into our day-to-day lives. So when you take the time, put in the effort to align yourself with your thoughts and feelings of love, that is what you begin to emanate, radiate out of you. As a result, you will attract back to you those people who are looking for that, those people who are harmonizing with that, hence how you attract to you that which you are seeking. Again, you could attract people who are looking to feed off of that because they don't have it themselves, and that's taken care of when you're being consciously aware. It's taken care of when you've taken the time to get to know yourself and know where your weaknesses are, or your opportunities for strength are, so that you will know if someone does present themselves and they aren't authentic. You will know because you are being consciously aware, because you are aware of who you are first and foremost, and and are being aware of others. So that's authentic relationships. I hope that was of some assistance. Again, we are not going into in-depth discussion into any of the subject matters, just a little overview, a little inspirational insight to assist in our little day-to-day. I would like to make a note. When we're talking about love, when we're talking about love consciousness, we are not talking about mushy-gushy, lovey-dovey, ooey-gooey love. We are not talking about impassioned and ravenous love. We are talking about agape love. We are talking about unconditional love. It's bliss. It's a neutral state of beingness. It's a state of calm. It is a state of homeostasis, our optimal health, which isn't jumping up and down like a maniac in either love or fear or anger or stress, so on and so forth. It's peace, serenity, it's bliss. It is what it is authentically best for us. Okay, good. So, moving on. Our next day-to-day event, situation that many of us, all of us at one point or another, deal with is the loss of a loved one. Granted, it's not every single day that we lose a loved one, but every single one of us, it is a day-to-day occurrence. People are born and people die. It happens. It's part of life. So how do we maintain a state of love consciousness when dealing with something that, for many of us, is an extraordinarily difficult, painful, potentially destroying to those who are left living experience in our lives? And to demonstrate this, I am going to focus on those who have adopted a paradigm of love consciousness more readily in their overall lives and how they respond. The reality is, most of us, when we lose someone, go through a period which we call the mourning phase or the grieving phase. Those who are coming from a paradigm of love consciousness, this mourning or grieving phase is either significantly diminished or completely eradicated altogether. And one might be asking, well, how is that possible? Like, what, are people like jumping up and down for joy and celebration when somebody dies? Some, yeah, actually. Those who aren't, but are still not succumbing to the pain that oftentimes accompanies the loss of a loved one, are not succumbing to those pains because they are coming from an alternative perspective. And before we go any further, I would like to make note that we are speaking about the loss of a loved one just because it is pretty much the biggest loss that we experience in our lives. But what you will find, and again, this is day-to-day life situations and everything is interconnected, we could be easily talking about the loss of a job, the loss of a friendship, the loss of a lover, the loss of a ring. We could be talking about the loss of anything. anything that one feels an attachment to and is emotionally invested within, there is a similar process. Again, not necessarily quite as intense as that of the loss of a loved one, hence why we're using that as our example today. But you can take the insights of love's wisdom from our discussion today and attribute it to anything with respect to loss, essentially. So for those who are coming from a perspective of love consciousness, they're coming from a perspective of knowing, living by the knowledge of our unity. They are coming from a perspective in which there is a simple acceptance that everything is connected. And by everything, I mean everything from the stars in the sky to the worms underneath the earth. By everything, I mean everything that was, everything that will be, and everything that is. It's all connected. Everything is energy. Energy does not die, it just shifts forms. Those coming from a perspective of love consciousness have accepted this truth. As a result of accepting this truth, they're not necessarily feeling the same depth of loss as one who hasn't. For them, when someone transcends the physical body, the someone still is. They just don't have the body anymore. To try and explain that to you in another way that might assist you with understanding their mindset, if you take an individual, and let's make this person a make-believe individual, because this is a horrible thing I'm about to say, but we'll get the point across. If you chop off their arms and their legs, I'm sorry, but it really makes the point. The person who they are is still the person who they are. Forget about becoming jaded and so on and so forth. The person who's becoming jaded is the person who was there before they were becoming jaded. They're the person who was when they had their arms and their legs. They're the person they are without them. We aren't this physical body. As much as it definitely, thoroughly is an expression of who we aren't it. It is an expression of us, of our authenticity. Who we are exists with or without the body. Those who have adopted, embraced, and embodied the consciousness paradigm of love, as we spoke to before, authentic agape love, when someone transcends the physical, sees it from a different perspective. They see it, one, from the perspective of gratitude. Gratitude for that which was experienced within the physical together. Celebration for the life that was expressed in the physical. And excitement at the opportunity for the new expression of both the individual in their new ascended form and the relationship with that individual in the new ascended form. For it gives us the opportunity to open ourselves on levels that we are not accustomed to operating by in our day-to-day physical lives, in a manner that is metaphysical. It opens us up. It opens up the senses beyond the physical senses. It gives us the opportunity to fine-tune these senses, to open ourselves to the possibility of these individuals interacting with us in ways that are non-physical. Whether that be through your dreams, whether you hear them in your thoughts, see them physically, visually see some semblance of them before you. which of course, again, requires trusting, embracing, and embodying the consciousness of love, as opposed to fear, which completely eradicates any of these as potential or possible, because there is doubt that pervades through all of these experiences, and they are just blown off as mind games or nothing. And in their place is the pain and the suffering from the loss that we've experienced. For one who has adopted love consciousness, it isn't loss, it's just transition, which, granted, any change requires a regrounding. It requires a resettling. When Shaman was here, I was kind of sitting more like on a slant. When he left, I readjusted myself. The readjustment period sometimes can be uncomfortable for a moment or two, from the comfort that you were in to the comfort that you will now be in, that transition. But the length of time and the depth of discomfort that one may experience through change is completely a choice of the individual who's going through it. And it need not be at all. So, that is what one who is coming from a perspective of love consciousness would, to some degree, experience as the loss, or as they would more likely call it, the transcension or ascension of a person's physical life here upon the Earth School. This is not to say that if you are having feelings of loss, if you are going through a mourning or grieving phase, that you should not, or that you are wrong, or that you should punish yourself for so going through this, or worse yet, that you should try to ignore or repress these experiences, emotions, and thoughts. Not a good thing to do. Repression, no good. No good, not authentic. The only way to be authentic is to be authentic. You must be honest and truthful. And so if you are going through feelings of loss and pain and feeling anguish, you have to allow yourself to have those feelings. You have to allow yourself to acknowledge those feelings. Allow yourself to experience them, feel the feelings, think the thoughts, embrace them lovingly, compassionately, patiently, so that you can let them go, so that you can release. You have them, you feel them, and then you can make the choice to realign your mind with thoughts that are uplifting. Make the choice as to where you are going to invest your energy. Are you going to invest it in the painful thoughts, in the angry thoughts, or are you going to invest it in the celebratory thoughts, in the memories of bliss, in the gifts of opportunity, of experience, of life? Okay, so that is loss. Again, I know, very brief. We're not going into major details here. We're just touching briefly upon things to assist us in our day-to-day living. And I do think we have time for one more, but before we get into that, we're going to take a short little commercial break. and share some fabulous love with everyone else. Sharing the love. That's what Radiating Love and Being Love TV is all about. It's about propagating a consciousness paradigm of authentic love. And we are most deeply appreciative and grateful to you for sharing our shows with all that you know. All you have to do is click on the button. I do believe it's to the right underneath me, underneath our logo over here, actually. Isn't that a nice logo? Right under there, there's a button that you can click on, and it'll open up a whole bunch of social networking sites. And you just click on the ones that you are associated with, and you can share the videos just like that. And in so doing, you are choosing to be an active proponent of love consciousness. So, thank you very much. All right. So, actually, speaking about my lovely logo, and just give me a moment here. For those of you who don't know, Radiating Love is broadcast on Being Love TV, and Being Love TV broadcasts another phenomenal show called Souls Talking Brain, URL above me over here. This is my double goddess and co-host of Souls Talking Brain, Aline Ohanessian, also my starry soul sister. And she and I will be coming to you live, not this Wednesday, but the following. I think the date is April 10th. April 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And we have a phenomenal guest who will be joining us, William Whitecloud, who wrote the book The Lost Shaman. And we are ecstatic to be sharing him and his wisdom and his book with all of you. So we definitely look forward to seeing you. Please do join us again in 2 weeks on Wednesday, April 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern. And that's the URL. And of course, if you're here on Radiating Love, you can get to it easily as we're all on the beinglove.tv station. Woohoo! All right. Back to the show. So, well, not that we left the show. It's all part of the show. It's like all part of life. That's what we're talking about. Love consciousness. Hello. Okay. So our day-to-day living, being love. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is, and I think we have time for one more. I don't know that we'll have time for any more than this, but you never know. We might be able to squeeze another one in there. The next one is intuition. So we spoke about authentic relationships. We spoke about the loss of a loved one. And I hope that you've seen how, although they are completely different things we're talking about, they're actually completely interrelated. Just like I just said with the show, it's all life, day-to-day living. And being love is all about day-to-day life. So intuition is definitely connected to it all. As a matter of fact, intuition is the name that we have given to love consciousness, essentially. It is the name we have given to the voice which speaks to us, that is love consciousness. It is our higher self, our authentic self, our soul, the source, God, Hashem, Muhammad, call it what you will. Our intuition is love consciousness. It is that which is looking out authentically for that which is best for us. It is that which is looking out for that which uplifts, assists, empowers, and enlightens. For that which allows for us to fully embrace and embody our divinity, to fully experience self-love, being love, sharing love. So how do we tap in to this intuitive voice within us? And it's weird, right? I mean, it is us. It's our authenticity. It's our truth. How come we need to tap into it? Why is it not just so readily available? We have, I forgot, I'm so sorry. If you want to participate in the show, we have our chat and social stream windows available, which also are to the right of the window here. And we have Artwave with us, who is my starry soul twin sister. And she's commenting in the chat window and saying it's the voice that our ego wants to challenge. And it's the use of the word ego is a little with me, because to me our ego really is intended to be the conduit through which the soul expresses itself within the physical. It's the conduit between the unseen and the seen, the metaphysical and the physical. But it is easily blocked, clogged up, if you will, by the fears of the physical, and therefore can stop the intuitive voice from coming in. Hence why we need to learn to tap into it, because sometimes we need to wade through a pool of fear in order to get to it. And that has a lot to do with the conditioning that we have been subject to for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. We have not been educating, socializing, training, conditioning ourselves, our children, to tap into our intuitive, inherent abilities. We have been training ourselves to learn things that are external to our inherent abilities, to put our focus on things outside of ourselves as opposed to within ourselves. Hence why we need to learn how to tap in to our intuition, or more appropriately, why we need to remember, why we need to reacquaint ourselves with our intuitive voice. So how do we do that? I know, right? We keep skirting around. I just haven't gotten to the how yet, and you're all waiting. Get to it already! How do we do this? The intuitive voice is quiet, subtle. It's not loud. Same way I told you just briefly at the beginning, when we're talking about love consciousness, we are not talking about ooey gooey, mushy, lovey-dovey love. We're talking about agape love. It is the bliss. It's a state of serenity. So our intuitive voice is not screaming and shouting, yeah, this is the one, this is the one. It doesn't do that. It's very matter of fact. Just like the wisdom that we're talking about today is very commonplace. So the voice isn't screaming, it's just, yeah, this is great, or no, this is not so great. Oh yes, go this way is lovely. No, not so lovely. There is no need for it to scream and shout, because it simply is what it is. The same way that to embrace and embody being love, love consciousness, is not to go out and start screaming from the rooftops, love consciousness! Although that's great, and totally, I'm all for that. But in your day-to-day lives, when you're going to the office, you're not walking in screaming, love consciousness! You're just being love. When you're going to see your doctor, you're not screaming and shouting love consciousness, you're just being love. When you're interacting with people on a regular basis, you're not saying, hi, how you doing? Love consciousness is the way to be. You're simply being the example by being love. So it's very matter of fact. It's very subtle. There is no need for yelling and screaming. So to tap into the intuition is to relax, It is to create space. It is to be at ease. It is to be open. To be open and relaxed, to hear the voice is very much like tending a garden. In our garden, we have flowers that we would like to grow, and sometimes there are weeds. The weeds, we can say, are fear thoughts. And in order for us to know which of whatever is coming up through the ground is something that's good or something that's not, we need to be aware. We need to be paying attention. We need to be conscious. I don't think you've ever seen a gardener ripping through a garden in order to ensure that it blossoms beautifully. They take their time. They're nurturing and loving with their garden. So that if there are thoughts that are fearful, weeds, they're aware and they can remove them. They don't remove them with a bulldozer because they'd wind up destroying the entire garden in the process. They do it with care. They do it with love. Everything they do is done with love in order to ensure that the garden blossoms. And with respect to the love thoughts, in order to ensure that the flowers that you want are blossoming, they are paid attention to. They are watered if they need watering. You touch the ground. You're aware of the ground surrounding them. You're aware of where they're at. Are they budding? Are they growing? Are they blossoming? Do they need more shade, more sunlight, more water, more soil? But it's done very relaxed. Very relaxed. And we tune in to those thoughts and feelings of love. The more that we tune in to the thoughts and feelings of love, the easier it becomes to hear our intuitive thoughts. The easier it becomes to be aware. For some people, this process of tuning in requires that they pull out the weeds, the fear. And by this, what I mean is, for some people, what they do is they actually go on a journey into themselves and they see what makes them happy and what doesn't, what they're afraid of, what they're worried about, what stresses them, what concerns them. And then they take that fear and they question it. Where do you come from? Why are you here? What message are you bringing? What opportunity for healing and growth do you provide? What nurturing do you require? So that that weed is transcended, so that we can lovingly let it go, because we understand where it's from. We are being compassionate about it. And the compassion and the understanding leads to an appreciation for the lesson that was there, the opportunity for growth that was there, and thus we ascend into love. Others simply plant more beautiful flowers that naturally, as part of their essence, get rid of the weeds on their own lovingly. In other words, you can focus on healing your fears by going into them, or you can simply focus on being love. And in focusing on being love, the fearful thoughts naturally dissipate on their own. As a species, we tend to do both. We tend to go into things that cause us fear and try and heal them. We go back home and face our parents and bring up things. You know, when I was this age, you did this, to try and understand why did you do that, and it really hurt me, and so that we can release them. And we also tend to simply choose to align ourselves with thoughts that are loving. Doing both of these things is fostering a consciousness that is love-based, which strengthens our connection to our intuition. So both in doing all that we can to align ourselves with love consciousness, as well as doing all that we can to create, which I mean, they're completely interrelated, of course, to create an environment, a garden, that is perfect, a perfect environment for blossoming, which is an environment of the mind, body, and soul and heart that is calm and peaceful, allows us to tap into our intuition. Allows us to hear our authenticity more readily. Practice makes perfect, as the saying goes. The more that we practice, the better and easier it becomes. You want to tend to your garden, your mind, your state of being, in calm, relaxed, conscious awareness. And thus will you ensure that which is blossoming is beautiful, fruitful love. So, I think that's all we're going to say about intuition for today. Yes, we can say so much more. Again, anything and everything in life can be seen from an infinite number of perspectives. I can talk about each of these 3 things that we spoke about today 1,000 times over and say something from a completely different perspective about them each time. Because that's just the beauty of life. So hopefully that which we touched upon today, the small little bit that we did, has been of assistance to you in tending to the garden of your bliss as we are stepping into this beautiful season of rebirth, regeneration, and blossoming beauty, spring, and our ever-expanding embrace and embodiment of our authenticity, which of course is love consciousness. So thank you all so very, very much for coming out and joining in the show today. For those of you who are not able to make it out live, or for those of you who are here live and your friends weren't able to make it out live, the show is recorded and archived. You can watch it here, you can watch it on Facebook, you can watch it on Ustream, beinglove.tv, and on our Souls Talking Brain YouTube channel. We will be uploading our videos there as well. So definitely please share, please tune in, and if you have insightful words of wisdom that you feel can add to the show, please share them. And of course you do, because we all do, simply by existing. So share your love. Share the show, share your love, and be love as much as you can. More and more every day. It gets easier the more that we do. Sending forth blessings to one and all. Namaste and Lakesha Lakin. See you in 2 weeks. Blessedly be.